Hi everybody! I hope you're all having a good day. I hope you're all smiling and enjoying your lovely day. In this following lecture video, I'm going to be talking to you as to why VRM is limiting. Why can't I have Poyomi or Lil Toon or my custom shaders in VRM? Why can't I have Dynamic Bones or Magica Cloth in VRM? Why can't I have all the fancy stuff that VSF Avatar, VRChat, and What Do the Avatar have? Why can't I put all those in VRM? Why can't I have the fancy stuff? Why can't I even animate my wings purely in the VRM format? Like how, you see how, my wings are animated every time I blink? Why can't I have that in VRM? Or at least this specific way. There's a reason why for that. Why VRM comes off very limiting. To start off, though, we need to talk about what VRM is. VRM is based off of the GLTF 2.0 format, which is it has a humanoid standard. So I like to pretty much call VRM the humanoid GLTF model format. That's pretty much what it is. It's just a GLTF format with standards. That's about it. So, while there is no official acronym for VRM, I like to give it the acronym Virtual Reality Model, just so it just makes sense for others, because I've heard some people say that VRM stands for Void Model, when that's not the case. VRM is not exclusive to Void, and I'll explain in a moment. But well, again, there's no official acronym for VRM, but I like to call it that because the thing is that VRM was created to be a standardized 3D format, or 3D model format, that works with virtual reality content. It will focus for, VR sort of cases, despite the fact that VRChat still does not support VRM format. That's what VRM was pretty much made for virtual reality content. And of course, it is now seen as the most popular 3D file format for 3D VTubing, which is not bad. It's actually really great because it gives VRM a purpose. So what made VRM very popular is due to the fact that Void Studio exclusively supporting VRM export for their models, and since a lot of people heavily use Void so that way they can make 3D models completely for free and easier with a base model, that's pretty much how VRM got popularized. It's because of Void Studio. Now, of course, do keep in mind, though, that VRM was not made exclusive for Void, as it actually existed before Void Studio did, but it's just that VRM was just popularized by Void Studio. And also, not to mention as well, I did remember that Wakaru also supported VRM. I think Wakaru is technically the first VTuber program that even support VRM, because they supported both MMD or PMX and VRM. So, either way, though, another reason why VRM is also heavily used is because a lot of VTuber devs wanted to have an easy file format, so that way it's easy for both the dev and the user, not only for the user to easily make a model or prepare a model, but also the dev, so that way it's easier for them to debug, and just easier, because the thing is that they're going to be doing a lot of mocap retargeting with, when it comes to VTubing, because some people want to have a mocap suit, some people want to have VR body mocap, or iPhone tracking, or webcam even, or hand tracking, and all this crazy mocap stuff. So because of that, these devs wanted to have a file format that's easy. Now, while FBX was an option, the thing is that with FBX, let's exclude the fact of asset bundle models. I'll explain the asset bundle models, but when it comes to FBX, you can't export it as an unlit shading. Now, while of course you can actually embed textures into an FBX format, that just like what VRM does, FBX can't export as unlit shading. Or, unless the dev has some code that does that for them. Otherwise, that's not possible. And a lot of people will have anime style models or toon style models, so FBX really wasn't an option for direct import, since they do want to make sure that unlit shading was an option. So, and also, not to mention, when you export as FBX, you're going to have some people that'll be exporting a dog model, or a pony model, or an A-pose model, T-pose model, or a Godzilla even. So it's going to be really difficult to retarget mocap that is human focused on any FBX model, and this can just cause issues for the user and the dev. So what about GLTF, the original format that VRM is based off of? Well, GLTF is an option and also exports with unlit shading. There is also the issue again with having a standard rig, because since every mocap solution is from a human, because pretty much all of us are humans, whether you like it or not, we're humans, got fingers and all that. Pretty much with these mocap solutions, webcam and all that, there needs to be a standard, because again, you're going to have someone who will be exporting as A pose and someone exporting as T pose and all that. Again, you can also argue that you can use Unity's humanoid system to standardize the T pose and all that stuff. There's that argument too, but honestly, just for how VTuber devs set up their programs, it's just easier to use VRM. And especially with, again, Void Studio being very popular and allowing people to create their models easier, it just makes more sense to even support VRM in the first place. Easier for the dev, easier for the user end, so that way things don't get overly complicated or have too many issues. Now, besides that though, that's the thing with VRM, is that because VRM has an enforced humanoid standard, and not to mention an enforced shader type, MTune, physics, and all that, it just makes things easier. And plus, again, also free, because you don't have to pay for third-party physics or anything like that. It's free and MIT license. So, yeah. Alright, now, besides that, though, while VRM is it's a nice file format to easily follow for both the user and dev side, and also especially Void users who want to just put their models in a VTuber program very easily, and also being a modified GLTF format, which also does mean, because it's modified, it does have a standard, and this is actually good, so it can be ported to other 3D programs, because now you can actually, nowadays, you can actually use a third-party plugin and port a VR model into Unreal Engine, or Blender, or Maya, or Cinema 4D, or just almost any 3D program, as long as there's a plugin for it. So there's that, but many have kept wondering, why can't VRM have custom shaders, animations, physics, or any custom stuff that VRChat players have, for instance? And again, I mentioned the fact that VRM is a modified GLTF format, and this is actually the choice of the dev to modify GLTF into a humanoid standard with some other strict standards that they have. And while it is, of course, limiting to some people, not only is it the dev's choice, but it's also the fact that despite VRM being made purely in Unity, they also wanted the format to also work with other 3D programs. Again, putting a VRM format into Blender, or VRM into Unreal, or VRM to Godot even. So it's just so that way it's a universal file format that works with other programs. That's the dev's choice, really. So since VRM have specific standards, and since it's universal, it's a universal file format because it's based off of GLTF, do remember the fact that Poyomi, Little Tomb, Magical Cloths, Dynamic Bones, or any of those assets, especially ones that are used specifically in VRChat, these are made specifically for Unity's system, or Unity's game engine. And this means that you cannot put Magic Cloth or Poyomi in Blender, or you cannot put those assets in Unreal Engine, and so on. While, of course, you can, if someone was super, super smart, they could technically make a translation of Poyomi to Blender and all that, but even then, they're still different engines. You can make them look similar, but they're not exactly the same. So it's just not going to work regardless. Like, for example, why do you think that FBX doesn't export physics from Blender and easily port it into Unity? That's the reason why. Because every engine has their own physics system, their own shading system, or rendering system. Every 3D program is different, is coded differently. And it's the reason why we have an FBX that just takes just the basic parts of, simple rig, mesh, those stuff, and can easily transfer it to a different 3D program. For VRM, that's what they're trying to do as well, but of course, still retaining some of that standardized some of that standard, humanoid, the M-Tune, VRM Spring Bones, they want to make sure that that is still at least retained when it comes to porting it to different 3D programs. Again, that's the dev's choice. So that's why VRM does not support Magical Cloth, Dynamic Bones, Poyomi, or Liltune. It's supposed to work with other game engines, or not even game engines, just other 3D programs in general. Now, if you want to use assets that VRChat users commonly use, again, like Magical Cloth, or actually, no, you can't use Magical Cloth in VRChat. You can't, because VRChat uses Fizzbones only because of optimization. So, sorry to say, you'll never get Magical Cloth in VRChat ever. Optimization is important. So, Poyomi, Liltune, and I guess some use dynamic bones, but you're honestly just better off with fizz bones, for example. But even then, you can't use fizz bones in VTuber programs. I made a video talking about why you can't use fizz bones in VTuber programs. But pretty much my point is, if you want to use custom shaders or custom animations like how my wings are flapping and such, or even particle effects, for example, like those sort of things, because there's still some VRChat assets you can't use in VTuber programs, but for those things, you can actually use an asset bundle model, which an asset bundle model is a custom file format created by any dev. So, for example, Emiliana and Virtual Deep created the VSF avatar format, and Tiger Hicks. I call them Tiger. They made the Warudo format for their program Warudo, and pretty much these asset bundle models, these are what allow custom shaders, custom particles, or custom animations even. And of course, if you by any chance I will say this though, while asset bundle models, they're primarily for the program that they're coded on. So while VSF Avatar, for example, was made exclusively for VC Face, Warudo format, because Warudo format could just be anything, that is exclusive to Warudo. If you happen to know how to code, you can actually make asset bundles work with other VTuber programs. So, for example, how Suvidriel made VSF Avatar work with Vinyan, and how the devs of Mchian got VSF Avatar working on their program. Again, if you know how to code, you can do whatever you want. So, asset bundle models, what they do is that they convert the model, whether it's FBX or VRM, and they convert it into a Unity mesh that can only be open during Unity's runtime, or depending on the program that is coded for, their runtime. So that's the thing to keep in mind about. But of course, the program will need to, again, support that as a bundle. Just like how, again, Superdrill adds support for VSF Avatar, because they know what VSF Avatar whitelisted and how it's exported and all that. They got the code working with Vinyan. So do also keep in mind, though, that with asset bundle models, they are exclusive to their game engine as well. So, for example, VSF Avatar and Warudo format, they only work in Unity. You cannot port these models into Unreal Engine. You can't put it into Blender. You can't even put it in Maya, because they're asset bundle models. They are converted into a Unity mesh. It's another thing also is that while, like, again, this is me just reading off a script. It's really hard for me to even read this script, but I'm trying my best to make sure I organize my thoughts properly. So sorry for that. So, despite not being able to use asset bundle models for other programs like Unreal Engine or Blender and all that, the thing about asset bundle models is that they're still really good to use when you want to have custom shaders or custom particles or custom animations, or if you're very particular in your setup for VTubing, they're still really good to use. And it's still recommended, though, that even with an asset bundle model, have the source files. Like, I don't care if you're a Void model or a Kitbash model or a from scratch model, have the source files, whether it's VRM or blend format or FBX even. Have the source files with you at all times in case you lose the asset bundle model, or you fricked up something on the asset bundle model and you need to edit it again or something, because you technically, Now, there's a way you can open the asset bundle models, technically, but even then, they're not in a way that you expect it, and you can probably lose some data, so it's just better off to have the source files with the asset bundle, so keep that in mind. Now, also a little fun fact as well is that VRChat also technically converts your FBX model into an asset bundle model. So keep that in mind. It's just is that when you, let's say you have your FBX in a Unity pack in a Unity project and you're exporting it into VRChat, what it'll do is that it'll, the FBX setup that you have there, it'll just take all that data, convert it into an asset bundle model so it has all your custom shaders and stuff, and then puts it into their system. So that's technically what they do. It's just that you don't get the asset bundle file format to you. It's just ported into their system. That's what happens. So technically, that's an asset bundle model being used right there. Now, of course, I've said a lot of things, though, and you're probably scratching your head of what the frick I just said. Not to mention, I am trying so hard to read this script, and I'm probably doing a very poor job at even reading my very own script. So sorry for that. I like to change up how I say things in comparison with the script version. But either way, in a nutshell though, VRM is limiting because it's the dev's choice, the dev of VRM, to just make it have a humanoid standard and have very specific things, so, just to have that strict standard, but it also allows it to work with other 3D programs, and it makes it easier on the dev and user end to be able to just work with like virtual reality content or just VTuber programs. So you can have different variety of model styles as long as it just fits VRM standards. And VRM is also nice for people who want to just have a universal file format that works with almost any 3D program, thanks to GLTF, and also prefer to have a simple setup too, because again, while there are some that hate VRM to death, there are also a lot of people that heavily love VRM, especially those who came from Vroid or those who just prefer it simple, There will be people who will prefer VRM over an asset bundle model or even VRM over FBX even. And there's that, but also if you are someone that already uses FBX to port your models to different programs, which, there are many, like, depending on the person, if you already just put your FBX model into other 3D programs, and the only time you want to put your, have custom shaders and all that crazy stuff is if you want to, like, put your FBX into VRChat, or you're only using one specific VTuber program, like, for example, you want to take FBX and convert it to a Waterdo avatar format, so there's that. And also just I guess just that preference, you prefer the FBX format, then pretty much if you have a very particular setup or very complex setup that VRM cannot take care of, then by all means it's better that you just stick with asset bundle models and stick with FBX and your source files depending on what you do. But even then though, and I also mention as well that with VSF Avatar, you will need VRM to convert into VSF Avatar, but recently Hi did release a tool so that way you can actually just convert your VRChat models or FBX models directly into VSF Avatar, which is actually quite convenient if you absolutely hate the living heck out of VRM and just want to simply export into asset bundle or VSF Avatar or even Waterdo Avatar even. So there's that. Now, while of course, I will also mention this, pretty much that regardless of all the stuff that I said, at the end of the day, it's pretty much just up to you. You can have both a VRM and asset bundle model if it just makes, like, if you're having a hard time deciding, like, oh, should I just have just the asset bundle or just the VRM, then just have both, really. Like, there's no harm in having just both file formats. Like, even if you use one more than the other, it's, I guess it's just more convenient to have both of them just in case. But even then, at the end of the day, it's really just your choice on what you want to use with your models. And if you're someone that does commissions for other VTubers, like you're making models from scratch for other VTubers, then I would probably recommend you will have to stick with both of them or just talk with the client on what they want and just fulfill that request, really. But remember, though, that VRM will never support Poyomi, will never support Little Toon, never supporting Magical Claws, never supporting Dynamic Bones. or never supporting any Unity specific plugin except the ones that they natively support, which is Mtune, Standard Shader, which that's just PBR shader, which and every game engine or 3D program supports. But anything that's VRM specific, that's what VRM will be supporting. And of course, if you do want to have the custom stuff like Magical Cloth or Dynamic Bones and all that, then just make it into a Unity asset bundle model depending on the program of choice. Again, if you're VNyan, VSF Avatar, or Mchin, or any program that's, or even AvaKit, then you could just convert your VRM or use Hive's tool to convert your VRChat model into VSF Avatar. If you use Waterdo, then convert your FBX or VRM into Waterdo Avatar. And if you're VRChat, then just FBX to VRChat, and boom, you got your custom Unity stuff. But, you know, just a matter of choice. And I will also mention as well, in case anyone is wondering about VRM 1.0, VRM 1.0 is still, I still say it's a weak update, because the only thing they pretty much added was just capsule colliders, constraints, like, you know, constraints that Unity has always been having, and or about any game engine really. They just have like a native one that works with, you know, universally. And then they removed the normalization that actually helped devs, making sure that everyone's models don't frick up with mocap. So yeah, I made a video about VRM 1.0, and to this very day, my opinion still stands. I prefer VRM Legacy over VRM 1.0, but even then, personally, me, I don't really use VRM anymore. I just use FBX, put it to different game engines, and then I only have VRM to kind of just for testing. But otherwise, I just heavily use my asset bundle model with Waterdo and, you know, my source files. That's kind of about it, really. That's just my personal thing. But again, your choice. Hope that this was very informative as to why VRM is limiting, though. Let me know what you think. Again, if you heavily prefer VRM, it's your choice. There is nothing wrong with preferring VRM over FBX, or heck, even if you're someone that hates Unity so much and you just export your VRM exclusively with Blender, by all means, it's your choice. At the end of the day, it's everybody's choices, opinions on what they want. As long as it works with what you want to accomplish, it works with you. Alright? But either way, I hope you guys do have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye! Thank you to all my Snowflake members. In case you don't know, I have YouTube membership, so if you want to further support this channel and what I do, then feel free to join the Snowflake members. Otherwise though, just your support means so much to me, and I appreciate every ounce of it. Either way though, with that being said though, hey goodbye bye everyone! I hope to see you guys next time, okay? Bye bye!